This is the Mountain and Prairie Podcast. I'm Ed Robertson. My guest today is Yvon Chouinard. Yvon needs no introduction. The founder of Patagonia, pioneer of clean climbing, co-founder of 1% for the Planet, and lifelong advocate for simplicity and wildness. He's one of the world's most influential environmental leaders. Now in his mid-80s, Yvon continues to live, work, and fish by the same principles that have guided him since his dirtbag climbing days. Live simply, take responsibility for your impact, and keep finding meaning through deep, direct engagement with nature. His newest book, Pheasant Tail Simplicity, distills those philosophies into one of his lifelong passions, flyfishing. Co-authored with his longtime fishing buddies Craig Mathews and Mauro Mazzo, Pheasant Tail Simplicity begins as a guide to tying and fishing with only pheasant tail flies, and becomes a case study in creativity, restraint, and how simplifying our pursuits can reconnect us to what really matters. You don't have to be a hardcore angler to glean important lessons from the book. Its insights can be applied to almost any part of life. In this conversation, Yvon and I start out talking about fly fishing, of course, but we quickly veer into broader terrain, how constraints can become a path to freedom, how business can be a demonstration of ethics, and how pessimism can serve as a productive form of realism. He shares a ton of amazing stories, learning to fish with a tenkara master in Italy, teaching Crow Reservation children to fly fish, founding 1% for the Planet, why rebellious personalities make the best entrepreneurs, his love of regenerative agriculture, and why he still believes that action, no matter how small, is the cure for depression. It's a wide-ranging, funny, and wise discussion with someone who's spent a lifetime proving that the process is far more important than the outcome. During our conversation, you'll hear us reference several of Patagonia's pioneers, Chris Tompkins, Rick Ridgway, and Vincent Stanley, all of whom I've interviewed here on Mountain and Prairie. If you'd like to listen to those episodes or check out their books, there are links in the episode notes. A huge thank you to Patagonia, Patagonia Books, Patagonia Fly Fishing, and of course Yvon for the opportunity to have this conversation. Like many of you listeners, I've been deeply influenced by Yvon's work and worldview, so it was a dream come true to sit down with him for this long, relaxed conversation. Be sure to check out Pheasant Tail Simplicity and all of the other excellent titles from Patagonia Books. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you enjoy. All right, Yvon, thank you, sir, for taking the time to chat with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Last night at dinner, I said, I hope I don't get your day off to a bad start with all these questions. And you said, well, I guess it just depends on what questions you ask me. so I'm going to outsource my first question. I was texting with our mutual buddy, Monty Burke, the great author.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him I was going to be talking with you. And he said two things. He said, well, tell him I said hello. So hello from Monty. And then he said, ask him about the blind fisherman in Labrador.
Oh, my God. Well, you know, no matter how good a fisherman you are, you have bad runs of fishing. Mm-hmm. And I was salmon fishing in Labrador, and I could not catch a salmon. I mean, it just went on for like 3 days, and it's driving me crazy. And my friends were catching fish, and people all around me catching fish. And one day I was on the river. On the other side of the river, a car drives up, this big obese guy, gets out, waddles out with a spinning rod, throws it out, first cast, boom, catches a salmon, and falls dead. He just dropped dead.
Are you serious?
No, I'm watching all of this. And the ambulance comes and takes him away, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And then comes this teenage girl with a fly rod, again across the river, and she catches a salmon. Uh-huh. I'm going, oh my God! I just can't get one. And this guy and his father, old father, or maybe grandfather, I'm not sure. They come behind me, and they are downstream from me, and we're standing on rocks casting, and I can see that there's something wrong with his father because the son lets out like 60 feet of line and tells his father to cast over there. And his father's blind. And damn if he doesn't catch a salmon.
And while you're out there getting skunked?
And you know, the salmon had to go past me. And I'm going, oh, God. And then my friends come up to see how I'm doing, and they catch me fishing with my eyes closed.
That could be your next constraint you put on. Go for a year fishing with your eyes closed and see how you do.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Yeah. Monty's a good dude, man. I'm getting ready to have him. He's been on the podcast before, and I'm going to have him back on to talk about his new book, but he's a fan of you. Well, speaking of books, I love your new one. I love Simple Fly Fishing, and then obviously love the new one. And I'm curious. At the beginning of Simple Fly Fishing, there's a line where you said there's been more books written about fishing than there has been romance novels.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with this new fishing book, what made you decide? All right, it's time to write another one, because you got there are a lot of different ways you can spend your time. And so, what made you decide? All right, well, I want to write a book exclusively about pheasant tail.
I kind of make the connection between simplifying my life, simplifying my sports as part of the solution of saving the planet. When I was born, there were 2,500,000,000 people on the planet. Now there's 8 billion. And we're using up the resources of, I don't know what it is now, 7 planets. Mm-hmm. I mean, as a businessman, you know that leads to bankruptcy, right? What we have to do, and what everybody can do, I mean, a lot of people ask me, what can I do to save the planet? Well, you got to stop consuming and just consume better. Buy things that'll last the rest of your life instead of constantly consuming and discarding. And I see that in fishing. The whole industry in fishing is based on making fishermen feel insecure. It's no different than women's cosmetics or fashion. They make you feel insecure that if you don't have the latest thing, you're not going to catch fish. I know a guy who ties Atlantic salmon flies. He charges $35 each. And somehow he sells the heck out of them because people think, oh, this is going to give me a leg up on catching salmon. Well, no, it won't. I've always tried to simplify my life and my sports. And I've always thought that the way to perfection is through simplicity, whether it's making a product and that something is perfected, not when you can't add anything more to it, but when you can't take anything away. When I first met my wife, I bought her a kitchen knife. A chef
Romantic.
Knife. Yeah, a chef knife. But it was carbon steel, and we still have it. It looks exactly the same as it did 50 years ago. It cuts a tomato like you can't believe. Compare that with one of these stainless steel pieces of shit that you can't even sharpen, you know. And it's going to be handed down to my kids and then my grandkids. And so, you know, it's the responsible way to consume. And so I was in Japan about 30, maybe 40 years ago. I don't know. I was giving a talk on climbing in Japan, a lecture, and afterwards, a young guy came up to me, and he hands me this rod that's, you know, 1.5 feet long, telescoping rod, and he takes a deep bow, and he says, "Presento," you know, like, and so I bowed down, and I said, "Thank you so much," and then I kind of walked away, and I thought, what the fuck is this thing? And so, hey, here's this telescoping rod, like 11-foot rod, and it's made out of carbon fiber, but it looks like bamboo almost.
Sure.
And I put it away in a closet for years. It's got no reel seat on it or anything. Years later, I was in Italy fishing with my friend Mauro Mazzo, who's co-author of the book. And he introduces me. We went and fished this river called the Sesia, which they still have a few people that fish it the way they did in the 16th century.
Wow.
Traditional. And so, you know, everybody thinks that the tenkara rods, which they're called tenkara in Japan, that it's a Japanese technique. No, it was done all over the world before there was reels. And so there's an old guy there, 80 years old, who fishes that way. And so we went fishing with him, and he had this big, long bamboo pole, and he had a horsehair line that he makes, 18 strands of horsehair tail tapering down to 3 strands.
He makes that? He made that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he showed me how to make them. But, you know, it's like Italian cooking. Italian cooking is maximum 5 ingredients, but each ingredient has to be perfect. He uses a stallion tail, a white stallion tail, because the mares pee on their tail and weakens the fiber. And then the bamboo pole was a single long bamboo pole, but the last 1.5 feet was a different kind of wood, so that he got just the right action on the tip, so that he could give action to the fly. And then he ties size 20 flies with no vise in his hand.
Like holding them in his finger?
Yeah. But he's so in touch with nature that, like, that last 1.5 feet of wood is taken from, might be an elm tree or something, but it's a certain month of the year when there's certain water content in the wood. I mean, it's like a Japanese who makes bows, you know.
Sure, just every single detail.
Yeah,
perfect.
you get the bamboo from a certain aspect of the mountain where the bamboo doesn't twist. And, I mean, they're so in touch with nature. And then he uses feathers from small birds, which I won't say too much about that. But again, it's, you know, it's a certain time of the year. Like, I use a lot of Hungarian partridge for our flies. Well, you got to get them late in the season, and the feathers are different than a young bird in September. We're out with this guy, and we're along the river, and we get to a place that he looks down and says, "Oh, there's 5 fish there." And he doesn't use Polaroid glasses. He's 80-something years old.
Wow.
We got our Polaroids on. He says, "Yeah, look, whoa, God, we're trying to see them. We can't see them." So he said, "Yeah, there's a brown, a rainbow, a grayling, and, you know, another brown, whatever. We can't see them." He says, "Look, I'll show you."
Did you think he was bullshitting you?
Yeah, well, we didn't know.
Just didn't know.
He proceeds to catch all 5 with this primitive, you know, it's the line is only 15 feet long. Pole is 12 feet or so. And the horsehair line, he can make the horsehair line sink, or he can make it float, depending on how he treats it, casts it. He knows the currents so well that he knows where to put the line that'll take it down 4 feet, or it'll float. And you can't outfish this guy. With all our modern stuff, you can't outfish him. And I thought, holy smokes. And so then it dawned on me what this tenkara rod is for. And so I fished with a tenkara for quite a few years, and I introduced Craig Mathews to it.
Mm-hmm. What did he think? Because he's obviously...
Oh, he got onto it.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it a big surprise to him? Was he like, I can't believe I've been missing this? Or what? I mean, what did he think? Because he knows fly fishing, obviously, as do you.
Well, he really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And saw how effective it was. Because, I mean, I can outfish some of the best, my friends who are some of the best fly fishermen around, using a tenkara rod. Because after you cast with a 5-weight, 9-foot rod, it's a stick in your hand. It's a dead thing. The tenkara rod, you can work the tip and give action to the fly, or you can put 2 flies on, ways apart, and lift the rod up, and the dropper can dap along the top like a caddisfly laying its eggs. You can't do that with a 5-weight rod. We both discovered that of all the different criteria for a usable fly, the most important thing is action.
Mm-hmm. And color in the book, you know, you talk about everybody's always talking about color. You go to a fly shop and there are a million colors. That doesn't, in the scheme of things, that's near the bottom, correct?
It is, even though trout see color, but no, it's action. I mean, trout are predators, and they're bullies. They take advantage of the cripples. Can I say cripples?
Yes, we'll allow that.
Okay. Well, I'm
talking about fish.
I could say physically challenged, but, you know, their masters are not putting out any energy, so if they see an emerger on the surface trying to get out of its shuck, it's a done deal, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to fly away when they swim up there and take it. And so it's no different than a cat you can take a toy mouse and you can put it on a string and draw it across the room in front of a cat, and the cat will go in this pouncing position. And you stop it and then give it a twitch. Boom, the cat's on it, right?
It can't help itself.
So that's what I learned with tenkara. It's the action that counts. And size counts also.
Sure.
But other than that, the fact that fly has been so-called invented by some famous fisherman, or it's a color or glitter, or it looks like a Las Vegas showgirl or whatever, is not a factor.
What's interesting, I mean, I love all that, but the reality is I'll never be as skilled at fly fishing as you and Craig Mathews. But it's so interesting that by simplifying, putting in these constraints, even a master like you can learn. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I feel like, and tell me if you disagree, but fly fishing sometimes can have this vibe of a rich guy's sport, very exclusive. And what you're doing with the tenkara by introducing that, you make it simple for anybody from kids to children like my girls, to underprivileged kids. I know you've done a lot of stuff with the on the Crow Indian Reservation, and so it's kind of like on both far ends of the spectrum. It makes fly fishing a richer experience. Am I off on that?
Yeah, and it makes a democratic experience. I mean, these guys are charging $850 a day, plus mandatory tips, to put you on a boat with a dropper and a bobber,
and they're tying it up for you.
And you don't learn anything. And whereas it's really satisfying to take these Crow Indian kids and give them a tenkara rod, and they'll catch fish right away.
Really,
I mean, it's so effective. It's just a more effective way to fish, and then combine that with, at the same time, I was influenced by Sylvester Nimes from Montana here, who wrote several books about soft hackles. Now, the soft hackle fly goes back to the beginning of fly fishing.
Sure.
In Macedonia and BC or whatever, I don't know. And so it's an old fly, and I got onto fishing with these soft hackles. And I also was influenced by James Leisenring, who developed a Leisenring lift, which was a wet fly that you let sink, and at the end of the drift, you raise your rod up, and it looks like an emerger.
Okay, yeah.
So it was the first time anybody really fished emergers. And so I got on to taking normally the soft hackle fly was tied on dry fly hooks. So I started tying them on 2X heavy hooks and doing the Leisenring lift. And that led to doing a tiny little twitch. In other words, imitating that cat and mouse thing.
Sure.
And getting it, people say, well, you're swinging soft hackles. You don't swing soft hackles. I do everything to avoid the thing swinging, because insects don't swim. Well, most of them don't swim horizontally. They're emerging. So I'm trying to imitate the emerger. So it's going up in 2-inch increments, and that's what I'm trying to imitate. And I do that with that last 1.5 feet of a flexible rod. So, I use a cane rod most of the time, and also a 10-foot 2-weight rod, which not all of them are good, but I use an Echo, which is very inexpensive rod, half the price of regular rods, and catches fish like crazy.
And is that because of that final 1.5 feet?
The final 1.5 feet. I imitate the emerger by giving a little twitch to the rod, and so I don't lift the rod up. If you lift the rod up and then drop it down, you're putting a wave in the line, which the trout will take the fly and spit it out. So you're inducing slack. It's strictly an up thing, and the rod doesn't move up. I just squeeze my hand. So, I mean, it's the hardest thing to learn.
I mean, is there any way to learn it other than, I feel like it's like surfing. It's just time in the water.
Exactly right.
There's no shortcuts, which is why I think it's so great, because everybody's looking for shortcuts.
Well, I talked to this Italian guy, the master, and I said, well, how are you doing these things? He says, well, First of all, there's no language I can tell you what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And secondly, if I told you, it would rob you of the pleasure of learning by yourself.
I read some book a while back by one of these kind of tech guys, and it was all about, he's just obsessed with all these shortcuts. And he figured out, this is going to infuriate you, he entered some sort of martial arts tournament, but he figured out a little hack, a little loophole in the rules, and he was able to win the martial arts tournament without ever having trained in the sport, really. And I just remember thinking, what's the point? Like, yeah, you won, but the point is the training, and the point is the process, and the point is getting your ass kicked, and like this long thing. And I feel like that's how it is. That's exactly what that guy was saying with the fishing.
Yeah, I mean, this led to me spending an entire year fishing only with a flimp, basically a soft tackle on a 2X heavy hook. So I spent a whole year going all around. I mean,
saltwater, everything, right?
Yeah, bonefish, Atlantic salmon, steelhead, trout, everywhere, even small saltwater fish. Just one fly in different sizes. That's it. And I caught as many fish that year as I always catch. And then I started reading Arthur Wood, who wrote a book about grease line fishing for salmon. He caught thousands and thousands of Atlantic salmon back in the turn of the century to 1930. And he actually caught salmon with bare hooks.
Did he really?
And he spent a whole year with one fly, a blue charm, caught as many salmon as he always catches. And the next year he switched flies, caught as many salmon as he always catches. So it's all about replacing all those thousands of flies with just knowledge.
Well, and then just putting those constraints around it, and you're forced to be creative. Like if you can't, if that's not a lever you can pull by changing flies, you have to get real specific with all the other aspects of it, correct?
Well, if you're going to simplify your sport, I heard of a guy in Montana here who started elk hunting with, a rifle and big scope, and that was too easy, so he switched to a compound bow. That turned too easy, so he went to a long bow. That got too easy, so now he hunts elk with a spear. I mean, that's what American Indian did.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Way back, before they had bows, the caveman, and so he dresses himself like an elk and smears musk on him, and he walks up to an elk and spears him. So
I've never heard that.
Yeah, and then I've got I used to be a spear fisherman, and if you want to be a good spear fisherman, you can't use scuba gear because the bubbles scare the fish away. So you got to learn to hold your breath for 4 or 5 minutes, go down, stay real still till the fish comes by, and so you have to adapt yourself. You can't just go to the store and buy all this crap. I've been on a lot of expeditions around the world and stuff, and I learned to carry a load just like the professional load carriers of the world do, which is on their heads.
On the head, yeah. In that movie 180 South, I think you're doing that. You have it on your head.
Yeah, I mean, I use a tump line.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, the United Nations said that it's 50% more efficient carrying a load on your head than with back straps.
Is it really?
Yeah. I've been in Africa where we gave porters brand new backpacks, and they just go into the bush and cut down a vine, and they make a tump line and put it on the backpack. They don't use the straps at all. During the Chinese tea trade, they were carrying 300 pounds.
300 pounds?
300 pounds. You read that book, Annapurna, they had to carry Maurice Herzog out. One porter, I mean, I don't know what he weighed, 200 pounds maybe, or 180, and they put a tump line around him and carried him out. There's something to learn there, right?
A lot to learn there.
And I found that I'm a small guy, and I had to carry the same load as everybody else on the expedition, but I could do it with a tump line because I had full chest expansion. But you have to build up to it. I started out with 15 pounds, and my back was ready to go into spasm.
Yeah, I would think so. Your whole core, everything.
Yeah, you have to build those back muscles. And you look at those African women carrying those big jugs of water on their heads. They're so graceful because you can't jerk around and you're gonna
Yeah.
lose the jug
Make
of
a
water.
mess, yeah.
So I've been into simplicity all my life and simplifying sports. I've got a doctor in Jackson Hole who told me the story about his son just climbed El Capitan, he and his buddy.
Oh, wow, cool.
So, the nose of El Cap was done in, I don't know what it was, 60 or 80 days or something, over 2 years. They just did it in less than 24 hours, naked and barefooted.
What?
Yeah. And I'm thinking that is the way to go.
Yeah.
No, sports need to be purified constantly. And you know what? They didn't tell anybody. I had to
That's amazing. That's the amazing part.
No, I had to learn about it from his father. And really cool kids. And then, there was a couple of young women a few days later climbed the nose of El Cap so fast. They came down and said, well, that was cool. Let's do it again. They went up and did it again, all in 24 hours. I mean, I look at these basketball players. They're 6.5 to 7 feet tall. They're not throwing the ball up anymore. They're dunking it down. Well, why not raise the basket or something? I mean, this is stupid. It's the most stupid game I've ever seen.
Well, I feel like you've got something in you to where you're. It seems like you're seeking out constraints, whether it's in business. Like I think about when you laid down the law, 1996, we're doing organic cotton, and that's the new constraint, and we're not going outside of that. And then, it seems like that's just, clean climbing. You didn't have to do that, that was just this thing that you decided. This is how I think it should be. This is how I'm going to do it. I don't give a shit what anybody else is doing, and we're going to go. And then other people follow suit. I think it's been very it's been very impactful for me personally. Forget everybody else. Selfishly, I appreciate it.
I never wanted to play someone else's game. Mm-hmm. If you do, you lose.
Yes.
Like my son went to a little one-room schoolhouse for a year in Kelly, Wyoming. They had a PE teacher, an ex-Marine or sergeant or something, who'd say, okay, kids, let's line up on this line. Let's see who can jump the furthest. Okay, let's line up here. Let's see who can run the fastest. It produces one winner and a bunch of losers, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
That's the American way. Uh-huh. All American boys come out of that system. The rest are losers. And my son would just do a, Mahatma Gandhi and just refuse to take part of
Would
that.
he really? Was that? I bet you were proud, huh?
Yeah, damn right. But if you invent your own game, you always win, right? And so that's what I've done in business. I never wanted to be a businessman. I didn't respect businessmen. I didn't respect business. And I decided to make a business that I felt good about working at and attracting friends to work there. And so that we enjoyed, which would otherwise be a really boring thing to do with your life.
Well, that one question I had, I've gotten to know a bunch of your colleagues, especially, that came up with you, like Vincent Stanley and Chris Tompkins and Rick Ridgway. They've been nice enough to come on here and answer all my silly questions. But like, what do you look for? What did you look for in a employee or a teammate? Because they can't all be juvenile delinquents. Like you need some people that maybe are good at managing people, and I'm just curious, like when you think about the people that you're attracted to work with, what are some common themes?
Well, first of all, I'm horrible at interviewing people.
Are you really?
No, I believe everything they say, and so I let women do the interviewing because they can see through all the bullshit. But I made a lot of mistakes in hiring people. But you need a combination of entrepreneurs and managers. Really a big difference between the two. And there's very few people that cross over. Our fishing part of the company right now is growing 80% this year. Wow. And because I have this woman who's total juvenile delinquent.
I met her last night. She's awesome.
She showed me, when she was in junior high, she showed me a letter the teacher sent to her father that was about a foot long of infractions. Kate, goes to the bathroom and doesn't come back in half an hour. Kate is always disruptive in class. Kate, I mean, it went on and on and on. Yeah. And she's the best person I have in the company right now.
That's so great.
Because she's not, a manager is, once you have established a business through entrepreneurship and stuff, at some point you need managers. And managers keep the status quo pretty much. They don't constantly look for change. They don't like change very much. And so you need both. But if you ever find someone who is both, you've got a gold mine there. But there are not many. Often you just have to get rid of the entrepreneurs sometimes. They're disruptive.
They start up something, go do their own thing somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I would imagine there just does come a point, because it takes this kind of crazy juvenile delinquent energy to get something going, and then it could repel those people, and they just need to go start something new,
And it's not something you'll learn in business school.
No.
Like a lot of people study marketing, right? Mm-hmm. You don't learn marketing in business school. You're born with that. It's a creative thing, and you can't build creativity in business school.
I saw an interview with that comedian, Jerry Seinfeld, and they said that a college brought him in to talk to a comedy class. And he walked in and he said, well, first of all, the fact that y'all are in this room is a very bad sign.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, you're either going to do it or you're not.
Yeah.
And you got to go out and get your ass kicked. And it's like the fishing. There's no way to do it other than do it. Well, in the beginning of the book, there's in the opening part that you write, you talk. There's one little part where you talk about bug life and how anecdotally you've seen just the bug life in the West just kind of crater over your lifetime. And then you quote a lot of different stats. I mean, I feel like teaching these kids to fish, it's, best case scenario is creating a new generation of conservationists and people that care about this stuff. But how do you think about these kind of the crash in the bugs that you mentioned? Because I'm just curious about that.
I'm pretty pessimistic about the fate of our planet, and I always thought the deciding factor is going to be running out of water. Mm-hmm. Number one.
Yeah.
And that's happening all over the world.
Where I live, that's what's going to shut down the town where I live, and nobody understands it.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that was number one. I thought number two was topsoil. We're going to run out of topsoil. The way we do agriculture now is just destroys topsoil. It's all chemical farming. But I just read a book about insects, all insects. And we basically lost 70% of the winged insects since 1970. These are the pollinators. And terrestrials, we've lost 40%. And as far as fly fishing goes, there goes the flies. And like the Henry's Fork is almost a dead river. I've watched that thing. I used to fish it in the 60s, and there would be so many insects in the air that every bird around, seagulls and blackbirds and swallows, and it was just crazy, so many bugs. This year, it was a disaster.
Because of lack of bugs and is the rising water temperatures, is that a big part of it as well?
The lack of bugs, rising water temperatures, and the way they manage the dams.
Oh, okay, yep.
They manage it for potatoes, and so they don't leave enough water in the winter to keep life. There's very, very few fish, no small fish. They're all either a big fish or nothing.
Really?
What's the university in Colorado? I forgot. Did a study on
Colorado State.
Yeah. And they figured by 2030 we're going to lose 40% of our cold water fisheries. Yellowstone was closed most of the summer because the water was too warm. In eastern Canada, on the Cascapedia River, it used to be one of the best salmon rivers in the world, and now it's full of striped bass. The striped bass have moved up from Chesapeake Bay into Canada because the water's warmer, and they're eating all the smolts. So all the salmon smolts don't have a chance. And so they're letting the First Nations people commercially fish on the river for the striped bass. And they're catching 3,000 a day.
How do you keep track of all these stories? Because I know you don't think. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. You don't mess around with computers. You don't have one of these silly phones. I mean, where do you get your info? Because I want to adopt whatever you're doing.
Well, I'm a reader. I mean, I read 3 newspapers a day. I listen to NPR. It's the only radio station I listen to. Mm-hmm. I just educate. I'm self-educated, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the only way. I mean, it's similar to everything else we've been talking about. If you really care about it, you'll put in the time to learn it, other than just getting it force-fed to you through the internet.
Yeah, and through our philanthropy, we support thousands of organizations. So we got to know, and we do it without bureaucracy. So that you got to know who you're giving to and why you're giving to those people, instead of creating this huge bureaucracy that requires all kinds of paperwork and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's my interest, is to try to save the planet.
Well, that brings me to, I had, we were talking before we started recording, I had Kate Williams on the podcast, who runs 1%, and then I was with her the other weekend in Lander. And so we spent an hour talking about 1% for the planet and everything, getting ready it's coming up on $1 billion given away. But we just kind of went over briefly the history lesson of how it started. Can you talk about how you and Craig started that? I'd love to hear that out from your mouth, and Craig will be here tonight. Y'all are doing a event together.
That's right.
I'll look forward to meeting him.
We used to do 10% of our profits before taxes. That doesn't mean anything. It's kind of like, you know, you buy a bottle of juice and it says a percentage of the sales of this juice is going to go to doing environmental work. What does that mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
It means nothing. And even 10% of our profit, what if you don't make any profit? You don't have to give anything. And you can manipulate the numbers so that you're not showing any profit. You give yourself a big or dividends.
Go buy yourself a new Ferrari, right?
Yeah. So it means nothing. And we noticed other companies saying the same thing. So we decided to really knuckle down, and we just said 1% of sales. You can't fake that. And we don't look at it as philanthropy. We look at it as a cost of doing business, because we're polluters. We try to minimize all we can, but in the end, we're using non-renewable resources to make consumer goods. And so we look at it as a cost of doing business. And so at about the same time, I'd met Craig by going to his fly shop.
Is that how y'all initially met? You just walked in his shop?
Yeah. And started talking, and it turns out he was giving 2%. And he was giving it to the Yellowstone Park, because his shop is in West Yellowstone, and his business is dependent on having Yellowstone Park there. So he would give 2% of his sales to Yellowstone Park. So we started talking, and we decided to start an organization, which led to 1% for the planet.
Y'all going to hit $1 billion very soon.
Could be closer to the majority of the companies are out of the States.
Yeah. It is a big international component from what I remember talking to Kate.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever imagine it would catch on like that?
No, and it didn't go very far till we got Kate.
Well, I asked her that because she was telling me about the progression, and it seems like it's like a hockey stick. And and she's so modest, she wouldn't admit. But I said, it seems like when you show.
Well, it took off, and when she ran it in the beginning, there was 18 women and one guy in the organization. That's why it took off.
Yeah.
I mean, we guys have screwed everything up so badly. It's time to step aside and let the women take over.
I agree. I grew up all guys, everything. Like I went to all guys high school, all guys summer camp. When I went on Knowles, it was all guys, and which was just a disaster. And now I'm surrounded by, I got a wife and 2 girls, and then my girls have a female cat.
Great.
So, and I'm much better human. I'm so much better.
Well, I was raised by my sisters.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was by far the youngest. There was 4 of us, 4 kids in the family. My brother was quite a bit older, and my sisters were quite a bit older, and I wasn't supposed to happen. But my sisters, they pretty much raised me. So I'm very comfortable with, I think like 70% of our employees are women.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, on that Knowles course, it was 9 guys, age 18 to 23. And so it was just a lot of testosterone, one of my instructors scolded me one time because I kind of got into a little verbal match with some guy, and he goes, "Hey, we're not going to have any more of this alpha dog bullshit." And that rings in my head still today, because sometimes it'll flare up. One thing about your philanthropy and your conservation work, I think I talked with a bunch. I have a partnership with the Nature Conservancy. I highlighted it. The most recent one I did was with some regenerative farming work they're doing in Idaho, which is really cool. But I don't think a lot of people realize that you're a big fan of regenerative agriculture. And you've done some stuff. Y'all do some stuff with Dan O'Brien. Is that right? At Wild Idea Buffalo.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit just about your interest in that, or how that came to be?
Well, I'm very interested in food, and in fact, I feel like Patagonia. We hit $1 billion in sales a few years ago, and I thought, this is it. I don't want to go any bigger. I don't want to go outside the outdoor, especially the outdoor industry. And so I don't think we can go much further without losing our soul, without hiring Kim Kardashian to design a ski line for us.
You would do it if the price is right.
Well, that's what North Face just did.
Oh, my God.
So growth is the elephant in the room. It eventually kills you. I mean, the average lifespan of an American corporation is now 18 years, less than 18 years. And so, they go belly up and put people out of work. And, I mean, it's disruptive. And we've been in business for 53 years now. And I want to run it as if we're going to be, we can't be growing 10% a year, and pretty soon you're $1 trillion company in 10 years or whatever it is. I want to diversify the company, and I think I'm so pessimistic that I don't think people are going to need clothes in the future. They're going to need food. And how food is grown can either help save the planet or destroy the planet. And so I think regenerative agriculture, regenerative organic, which you got to add the organic part, and which is, a way of farming that is no-tilling, so it keeps the carbon that you've collected into the soil and can grow more food per acre than industrial agriculture, and makes topsoil, because it takes 1,000 years to make an inch of topsoil. But if you do it regeneratively organic, where you're replacing the soil with compost and putting things back in, you can build an inch of topsoil in a few years and capture an incredible amount of carbon. And so I'm really interested in that, and I'm interested in food. And we started this Patagonia Provisions, and we have canned fish. That's all the forage fish, not fish that eat other fish, but
sure,
that eat plankton and
bottom of the food chain, huh?
Yeah, so that's much more sustainable, and so I've always been interested in food. So I want to diversify the company into that direction.
That book that y'all published recently called The Third Plate by Mark Easter, about food, and that was one of the most impactful books I've read in a long time.
Oh, good.
And I had him on the podcast, and he's great.
Good.
Yeah, I went up to CSU and talked to him. But that book finally it gave me a visual in my brain of what is happening when you till up that soil and the carbon just going into the air. When you think about, you're not afraid to start a fight with somebody, and when you think about the best way to combat climate change, it seems like you're more on the side of let's figure out a way to sequester carbon, let's figure out, versus waste, spending a bunch of money trying to fight big corporations, suing them and that kind of stuff. Am I right on that?
Yeah, and in this day and age, a lot of environmental organizations exist to force the government to do the right thing.
Sure.
Good luck with that right now. So I believe more can be done with market forces. And in fact, the way the system is, if you can get consumers to do the right thing, that'll lead to corporations having to follow, and then that'll lead to government the following, because the government is a pawn of the corporations too. So,
Sure.
So that's kind of a little Zen lesson, I think. For me, as a I'm not the owner anymore, but I'm still working harder than I've worked in a long time in Patagonia. We have to do the right thing, and just do our thing and show that it's profitable and it's good business, and hopefully it'll lead to staying in business a long time. So be it. As far as thinking that that'll influence lots of other companies to follow our way, that's wishful thinking. Existing corporations are not going to change. They're going to do greenwashing. You have to start from day one. You can't clean up these big corporations. They're not going to move.
But it almost seems to me that it just takes this unbelievable hard-headedness as the company grows to stay with your values. Because I would just think there's so many opportunities where you could just make a compromise here, make a compromise there, and the next thing you know, you're way off the path. And that one thing that's always fascinating me about you is you're a proud pessimist. I've seen you say, that you're a very happy person, but you're a pessimist. And how do you think that's played into the success of the company and just different things? Because I feel like most entrepreneurs that I read about or know, they're just locked in optimists. It doesn't mean they're like, a lot of them are super unhappy people though, but they're not necessarily, they're not pessimists. And that's one thing that's always fascinated me about you is you're a pessimist, but you're happy and you embrace the process and you work hard. I mean, what do you think about that?
There's a beginning and end to everything, right? We're all going to die. There's no exceptions. All companies are going to die off. If you accept that, really accept it, then you could call it pessimism or you could call it realism. I mean, I've had a lot of a friend of mine, in fact, Mauro, the co-author of this book, he asked me last year, how many of your 9 lies have you got left?
That's a good question. So
I was laying in bed the next day, and I was thinking, I started totaling them up, and I got to 15.
Oh, wow.
And this isn't broken bones and stuff. This is...
Yeah, big time. Avalanches.
3 avalanches, all these near-death experiences. And I'm thinking about writing them all up. And
you should.
Because I got a good ending for it. I'm going to say, well, how is it that I've been able to live through, 15 near-death experiences? I guess I'm just a lucky guy. So I got the last sentence. I might as well write something up, right?
Or we could do a 15-part podcast where you just tell these crazy stories. Have you had any close calls or any surfing accidents or scares on that list?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've had accidents, but getting hit by a surfboard and bleeding all over the place. And
that's what always scared me about surfing. I was always worried I was going to get knocked out by the board.
Yeah, no, that's a real danger. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. You should definitely write that up. How last night at dinner, a lot of your team from the fly fishing part of Patagonia were talking about how involved you are with that, and you're working harder than ever, as you said.
Yeah.
Is that it seems that at this stage of your life, fly fishing is like your main focus. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, my balance is shot to hell. I can't get up on my surfboard anymore. I gave that up in 75 or something. When I was 75.
Okay.
I don't trust myself to climb because, especially on third class or something, because of my balance. And so, yeah, I'm an old man. So, but fly fishing, you can do it till you drop.
Yeah.
Like I said, a blind man can do it.
It seems like it's one of the few, with climbing, surfing, whatever, there's going to be a peak, and then where you have to taper off. But with fishing, it seems like you can just continue to improve, and it never ends.
Yeah, so far so good. Like, a guy falling out of a building and on the way down, so far so good. But anyway, I have to reinvent the company because the way we were running it, when there was no specialty outdoor industry, we invented that industry. We've been playing our own game all this time, and now we're knocked off by every company in the world. They knock off our products, make them in sweatshops. From 5 feet away, they look exactly the same, and they sell for much cheaper. They sell them in 7-Eleven stores. And so everything has changed. And so you need a revolutionary 10 years. And so I feel I'm using fishing as an example for the rest of the company, that if you do it like this, you could apply it to the whole company.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I've got a great person, this Kate Hadaka, the juvenile delinquent. I've got all juvenile delinquents in this. And so we're growing 80% this year.
That's amazing.
Well, it's not so amazing because the specialty outdoor industry is on the rocks. It's really hurting. I mean, all the big REIs and stuff, they're all hurting. And some of the companies like North Face have exceeded their natural space, so they're going mainstream. Orvis is hurting. Sims has been sold 3 times, and they're lost. So it's there. The business is there for us to pick up. When I gave the company away, I cut my salary in half and worked twice as hard. But I'm working in fishing. I've been designing again, and I've been designing a vest and SST jacket and some things. And so we're leading with increased quality and product. We're not doing it by more marketing or doing, cigar cutters and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, the one of your guys last night was showing me. He coordinates all the gear testing, and he was showing me photos of some wading boots that somebody in Europe had, and they was getting all this feedback on the tread, but the top was still doing great, but the tread was wearing out a little bit faster, and it's really amazing. I'm a pessimist too, and you've given me permission by your example to just say I am a pessimist. And with most businesses, I think, all right, this sounds good, but if you scratch below the surface a little bit, you can see there's bullshit under the surface. But with Patagonia, as I've gotten to know the company through all these interviews, the deeper I scratch, the more impressive it is. The commitment to quality, the commitment to longevity, obviously given the whole company away. I mean, it's really, 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 it just gives me faith in humanity when everybody else seems to be just losing their minds, and the McKinseys of the world are just rotting everything from the inside out. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's why I can sleep at night. I mean, I feel like I'm part of the solution, and so I can sleep at night. But, I look at America right now. Most empires collapse. Oh, they all collapse. All empires collapse. There's no exceptions.
Sure.
And they all collapse about 200, 250 years. It seems, And if you read books about empire collapse, I read one that's like 17 criteria, and we check off every one, which is an inability for holding together diverse cultures. Like the Soviet Union is trying to hold together Latvians and Estonians and Chechens, and couldn't do it. And what do we have? Diverse cultures.
And the internet makes it even more.
I've got nothing in common with some right-wing nut from Alabama, and he has nothing in common with me.
Right.
I'm so pessimistic. I think it's the end of the empire.
But you still work your ass off. You still take action. I feel like that's one of your, there's a quote. It said, action's the antidote to depression, something along those lines.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I take that. I don't have any tattoos, but if I got one, it would say action. Whenever I get down, I just got to get going,
Yeah.
I mean, would that be your advice to folks who are feeling bad?
Yeah, just get involved in something that you really believe in and you feel like you're doing some good. And my friend Wes Jackson said that if you have a plan that you can complete in your lifetime, you're not thinking deep enough. It doesn't matter whether you complete it or not. It's the action that counts, right?
That's what I think.
It's just like climbing Mount Everest, the same thing. It's how you climb Mount Everest. It's not getting to the top. I mean, you could take a helicopter to the top.
I like one time I heard you say the way some folks do it now. They come back to the camp and they got a little mint on their pillow. The guy.
Yeah, well, that's
to go up an asshole, come down an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been no transformation because you compromise all the way up.
Yeah.
You get in that conga line, a 250 people. I mean, and you're all hanging on to each other's belt. And I mean, it's...
They paid $100,000 to go up there and wait in line at 28,000 feet. Well, Yvon, seriously, you've been such an influence on me. I mean, I'm sure people tell you that all the time, but some of my professors do not appreciate your influence on me because I started arguing with them. But this was so great. I'm looking forward to the event tonight, and just thank you for taking the time. This is really fun.
Well, you got me all warmed up for tonight.
Hey, it's Ed again. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. I know your time is valuable, so it means the world that you spend it listening. If you want to support the podcast and help it to continue to spread and grow, there are a few ways you can help. Number one, pass it along to a friend or share it on social media. Word of mouth recommendations are the most powerful way for ideas to spread, so I'd love it if you could share the podcast with a few pals who might enjoy it. Number two, you can go to Apple Podcasts and give it a 5-star review. Good reviews encourage the Apple overlords to suggest the podcast to others. So there's a link in the notes if you'd be so kind as to give it 5 stars. Number three, you can support the podcast financially via Patreon, and there are exclusive benefits for those who do, including a monthly behind-the-scenes newsletter, Mountain and Prairie stickers, live and recorded video chats with podcast guests, and much more. Number four, I've also got 2 emails that I send out. The first is my weekly email called Good News from the American West, which I send out every Wednesday. It's only positive news, something we can all use a little more of these days. And my other email is my bi-monthly book recommendations email. One email every other month with 5, 6, 7, or 8 books that I've recently read and highly recommend. The thousands of people on both of these lists will vouch for me. No spam or other funny business. And number 5, finally, check out my online store for Mountain and Prairie stickers, shirts, and coffee mugs. I've got some really cool designs from Western artists with more on the way, so head to mountainandprairie.com/shop to check it all out. I'd love to connect with you. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, so look me up on either of those platforms by my name or through the links on my website. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for your support.